Hey everyone, this is Shane Mahabier, president of Funder Intel. And so in today's video, I have a guest, someone I've known for a little bit now. He is Shawn Smith. He's the chairman and CEO of Dedicated Financial GBC. When Shawn founded the company in 2015, his vision was to create a new kind of commercial loan portfolio management company, combining both a new model of connecting on a personal level with those in financial trouble and a new corporate philanthropy model. To date, Dedicated has provided over 1 million meals to children in need, helped over 400 slave children find freedom, food, and education. Amazing. And has donated over $500,000 in the last 3 years alone to charitable causes locally, nationally, and globally. Just really incredible. Shawn, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Shane. Good to see you.
You too.
So we were saying off camera, I haven't been on the circuit as much as Dedicated's growing. I have some amazing crew members, and Mike and John and another John and Matt that have been filling in for me a little bit more. So I feel like I used to see every other month or something, and now it's settled down a little bit. COVID hasn't helped that either.
Gotcha. Well, those guys have been doing well too, filling in for you. I've watched some of the videos, so props to them. Yeah, so that's a intro for you right there, but tell us a little bit more about how you got into your business and the industry.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that has anything to do on the workout side of banking, leasing, funding, so anywhere from the customer service, the workout, the collections, the repo, the remarketing, legal, those type of things. Typically, it's almost an accidental profession, right? You start out on the front end and you end up somehow on the back end and that type of thing. And that's really what it is. I was always doing marketing and was really passionate about ways to serve people with brands. But in starting my own marketing companies in my 20s and, kind of cutting my teeth in business on a couple businesses, I kind of filled that in with some customer service and collection work. And after a while, I kept getting asked to start a company in this sector. And I just really was kind of like, no, that's not something I want to get more into. I'm doing more of this marketing stuff over here and more passionate about that. And eventually it just came to the pass where I saw an opportunity where there was over 10,000 other companies, law firms, agencies, things like that were working in this space. And when you factor in sales companies, repo companies, and things like that, it's 15 or 20,000. But none of them were focused on giving back. None of them were focused on a positive approach. There's maybe some lipstick on the pig a little bit, but it just wasn't there. And the opportunity arose for me to launch Dedicated in 2015, January 11, 2015. We incorporated and started and, have grown dominantly every year over year since then.
That's great. Now, yeah, I can totally understand that. I think that's how a lot of people starting off in their certain careers anyway. So, and then did you always have an entrepreneurial mindset, or was that something that when you got into this in 20s and people started throwing those ideas at you, or did you have it at a younger age and like, all right, I'm going to own a business one day?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is I think when you look back in hindsight, you see the attributes, but during the time you don't think about it until after the fact, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I was always the kid that was trying to sell something or, had a little small business, just funny looking back on it, right? I mean, you name it. I was trying to figure out a way to make a buck on it and do that, but you just don't think about that. You think about it more as like, hey, you're young, you're a teenager, you're trying to make some money, you're in your early 20s, you got a side hustle. I didn't process it at that time as an entrepreneurial spirit. I just processed it as a young person who was looking to make more money, right?
Right.
But once I started my first, I would say, legitimate company at 22 in the marketing realm and grew that into the black to about 30,000 a month in revenue before I split ways with my partner. That's where the itch really came in. I I just realized that I didn't do well working for others. It wasn't my gig. I really can't stand poor leadership, or, when someone tries to treat you like a number, or, talks down to you because they have a manager title, things like that. Servant leadership is so lacking in corporate America today that it wasn't a place for me. And it just kind of snowballed to the point where eventually Dedicated came to be. So I'd say looking back, yes, but in the moment, I didn't really realize it. But anecdotal funny story was the night before, the former person that when I started Dedicated, I brought one person on board with me who had been asking me for 5 years to start a company. The night before he calls me and asks me to start Dedicated again, I had taken some funny anecdotal online quiz about should you be an entrepreneur or should you be a business owner? And it was like a 1 to 10. And after I get done, it was like 11. If you're not running a business right now, punch yourself and go get an EIN number in the morning.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
So that was like in my head. And
Right.
then the next morning, I get into it with my boss, the VP of this company, and he really ran it like the mob. I mean, it was just horrible experience. And so I on a Wednesday, I tell him I'm taking the rest of the week off. I don't even know if I'm coming back. I'm going to talk to the owner. I just disgusting how you're running this company. And as I walk out of the building, my phone rings, and it's the guy that's been bugging me for 5 years to start a company.
Wow.
So what do you think? I'm like, you know what? I'm open to it. So I wasn't really even looking, but the timing was just kind of funny and worked out.
Sure.
To him calling me taking that quiz, me battling it out with my boss. It just all the timing worked out really good.
That's wild. Timing is almost everything, right? I mean, they say time is everything, but that's for sure one of those things that makes you, wonder like that absolutely could be true.
I read into it for sure. I mean, I'm a faith guy. So, I mean, I was wondering, what am I doing at this job? And I had taken the highest paying job I'd ever had in close to my home. I didn't have to take a freeway to get there. And one of the owners went to my church. So I'm thinking like, I'm in, you know what I mean? It's a 300 person org chart and I'm number 3 on the org chart. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
By all means, I'm in my early 30s, I made it. And it just wasn't that, it was just the exact same thing I'd experienced at so many companies where you would love being there with some of the coworkers you work with, but management and just the negative environment was so toxic and especially in our industry, right?
Right.
On that collections, law firm, repo side, that's just, it's earned a reputation and rightfully so. It's just a really tough, the environment is typically more tough to handle than the actual job, which is already a tough job to handle.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more about what you guys are up to now then. I mean, because you serve a variety of industries, right? But a lot of it is in the business finance space, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I'd say that's our specialty. We kind of were born out of a third party commercial collection agency. And I had a background in selling some bank owned equipment on equipment leases. And so sometimes we would get accounts where the repossession was unsuccessful. And so like, well, hey, if you find the equipment, since you know how to sell it for us. So we started out doing those two things, then grew from there into handling the repossessions. And obviously we outsourced those. And then, so we're just making it more fluid for the client to deal with one company for all services. And then brought in a legal team, in-house counsel, and growing that to about 8 folks. And, now we're handling nationwide legal servicing. And then we kept getting asked, we kind of getting earlier and earlier stage until we start bringing on first party clients where we're acting as the bank, as the leasing company, as the revenue-based finance, company's internal department. And so now it's kind of grown from servicing or kind of a cradle to grave. And about the only thing we don't do right now is we don't purchase debt. So we only service it on behalf of a client, either as an outsourced first party or a third party, and all the way to the point of debt sales. And then we have a lot of partners to help our clients shop around those deals, but we don't end up, we're not taking a cut or anything. We're just doing that as a service for our clients. So it's really turned into any form of commercial funding, whether it's a bank, leasing company, revenue-based financing, and even B2B, because really working with businesses and business owners on a commercial financing product, that's our niche. We're not doing anything consumer or commercial mortgages or anything like that. We're really in that niche of working with distressed accounts in and around any form of commercial loan or funding product.
Got it. Okay. And so is the fears of recession, concerns of recession, the economy, rates, anything like that, are they affecting your business right now? Are you seeing, something in the next 6 months you might have to adjust to?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we're starting to see the beginning upticks, right? So it's been a wild ride, right? I think for everybody for the last couple of years. And the way it's affected our business is the pre-COVID, I would say, charge-off rates or default rates were kind of getting high, but not, they were within okay realms for the banks and the leasing companies, the fintech companies. But so our volume was super high because they were funding at an all-time high rate. COVID happens, we go into an initial nosedive and then immediately double after that because there was just so much work to do. There's just so much follow-up and so much communication. I mean, we were communicating with thousands of, at that point, tens of thousands of accounts on a daily basis, it seemed like, just because the situation was changing daily. Whatever, deal you made with a merchant or business to help them out, one day, a week later, it had gotten worse or it had changed, right? And so what happened was we were just really busy through 2020, and in 2021, it started to slow down. The default rates, because so much of that PPP money, business owners had taken that and paid off their commercial loan product. And so it ended up being where people had record good years despite of COVID on the recovery side.
Certain industries.
Right. But then default rates, what ended up happening is they typically went to half of what they were pre-COVID.
Okay.
Which has been good. And that has led to a tear of funding going through the roof, people, going through and hitting record marks. I just saw on the leasing side, Murr Equipment Finance had a record there. I was talking with Bill Gallagher from CFG. They just had a record $25 million funded month, right? So now we're back up to surpassing pre-COVID funding, but the default rate actually still hasn't caught up. So while it is starting to uptick and we're starting to see that incline in placements, it's still so far below where it even was, where that comfortability rate is, that right now people aren't too alarmed on the funding side, especially in revenue-based financing, where they're saying bring it on, because when the banks and leasing companies tighten up, businesses are going to be coming to them even more for funding because they can actually get access to the capital, right? Yeah. And what I really see in the future here is that right now there's still enough money in the economy where even though gas is crazy, it's summer, people want to feel good, right? We're going into the holidays this fall. And I kind of say, again, I'm no economist, so this is strictly, I've got 20 years in this kind of sector, but I think people are going to hold out, spend the gas money, do the travel, buy the house or the car, and rack up the credit card debt, continue to try to expand the business, take out the financial products that they need to leverage those to grow their business. But I think after Christmas, when that kind of good feeling goes away, and now we've racked up all this debt, and we've gone for a longer period, spending a ton more money on everything, you're going to see this constriction where you're seeing little independent spikes in certain areas right now. I think it's going to be much more widespread by the time we hit January and February. And what I think that ends up doing is pushing default rates throughout 2023 into not only pre-COVID ranges, but probably higher. And that's, so I think companies really need to be looking at a plan of how they're going to handle that. Because if you scale up and hire a bunch of folks on the back end, you're going to need them for that period of time. But you're going to have to spend a lot of money while you're not making as much maybe on the front end.
Okay.
And so there's some strategic meetings that should be happening right now as far as, 2023, especially if you have a more, some of these products now, right, are just going out there for these really long terms, especially, revenue-based finance. It used to be this 3 to 9 month product, and now you're seeing 18 and 24 month plus products, right?
Right.
How is that going to perform? In what asset classes, what SIC codes, things like that, right? Like what is, you really need to be thinking about that, because I don't think it's a matter of if we're going to go into a recession. I think we are going into one.
Right.
It's just going to be a matter of how much do you have set up in advance to handle that and are proactive versus reactive.
Really good stuff there. And so are you seeing, lines of credit, term loans kind of similar? I mean, as far as default rates, or do you have clients in those areas, or?
I don't know their specific default rates,
Okay.
but I do know what we're seeing across the board on every financial product we service. So we do working capital stuff, secured, non-secured. I mean, you name it, right? And what I'm seeing across the board is an uptick in volume. And therefore, I'm going to assume there's an uptick in default rates. But again, in all my talks with my clients, they're still not sounding the alarm bells because they're still below pre-COVID, which they were funding like crazy then and okay with those rates then. So if they're still below them, they're like, hey, let's keep going, hey, put the hammer down. And I think for the ones that the problem is when you're making so much money in the front end like that, it's really easy to just not worry about the back end.
Right.
It's get the money out there, get the money out there. The problem is when you don't have a solid team and a scaling plan to scale when your volume doubles and triples, that's where folks really get hung up.
Right. And like you said, the term lengths of whatever product it may be, revenue-based financing, I mean, they're going out longer, but they have right now they're making those adjustments, right? So
the nice thing with that product is that up to about 12 months, you're pretty adaptable, right? Because even if you get 3/4 of the way into that deal on that type of product, on a purchase of future receivable type product, that is, the margin there is so big that they're fine, right? They're losing profit, but they're not really losing, their base, right? Or what they have into the deal. Whereas in the ones that are going 24 months plus out, and they think, well, because I'm working with a dentist or I'm, in these other markets where this guy's got AAA credit, those are the ones that are going to be interesting, I think. And I think we also don't know really what industries are really going to get hit hard, right? I think we have some ideas and you can really dive into that and nerd out on that stuff. But like what ends up happening is, you had stuff that pre-recession, like this was something that always performed well. And all of a sudden that's the industry that pulls the short straw and gets nailed. And you thought, oh, I put a big portion of my portfolio in there because that's always been good. And then that's the one that gets hit. And because you weren't thinking that was going to be the case, you didn't prepare well enough for it. So, I seen that, back, I came into the commercial side from the consumer in 2010. And I remember working with 3rd generation cabinet makers, right? And it's their business their grandfather had built. And I mean, that was one of the toughest things at the job. I mean, these guys were losing not just their business, but a legacy that they had inherited, right? And no one would have thought, housing was doing great for so long, and and we get comfortable, right? Where we think, and that's the ones where I think the more diversified you are,
Mhm.
you might be in a better position in case, what you're primarily funding gets hit the hardest.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So shifting gears a little bit, we talked at the beginning, how much you guys are involved with helping others and out in the community and doing really great things. So from your perspective, like how has that role impacted the culture of your company?
In numerous ways. And I was talking with general counsel of a big funder in Chicago recently, and I was talking about how one of the things we don't have yet that we really need to get better at on the for-purpose side of business is quantifiable metrics to be able to show the financial impact of having a business that is focused on giving back. And I would say giving uncomfortably, both internally and externally. Right. And so that culture of giving and it starts internally, right? It doesn't matter how much you polish the outside of the cup. If the inside of the cup is filth, everybody sees right through the shiny outside, because the second they have to take a drink of that water, they know it's bad, right?
Right.
And so, doing things like covering 75% of medical, dental, and vision, 5% 401k match with goals to get to 100% coverage for them and their family, and, an 8 to 10% match, as we continue to grow. Year over year, we've increased our benefits package every year, right? And so as we grow, that's kind of the relationship I have with the team, is we're going to continue to give back to those who are helping us become more successful. To things like covering unlimited chiropractic for our team and their family, covering the gym, covering financial planning, and Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. One of the things I'm really proud of is that we started out covering up to $200 a month towards any mental health visits, because what was happening is like, hey, I have great benefits, but I can't even afford the co-pays. So, some people they're in a tighter situation financially, even if they're making good money. It's like, I can't afford $200, $50 copay every time. I'd love to go and see a counselor or a psychiatrist or something. And during COVID, we researched everything, and the only options that were out there is to go to someone digitally who you didn't know, couldn't meet with in person, but you couldn't go and see maybe someone you already knew or were comfortable with. So now we cover any copays if someone feels they need it. And we have kind of a way of doing that where it's protecting their information and things like that. But it's things like that, having completely flexible schedules. We offer not only a strong PTO schedule, but an extra week of PTO for what we call compassion care, whether that be, a grandparent or someone with COVID, or, something like that, where you're like, hey, I have a friend, maybe they lost a child or whatever, right? Something where your heart pours out for that, but you can't really just stop what you're doing at your job and help them. But that's what we want to encourage, as well as an extra week of PTO for any full day service work. So up to 5 more days, whether it be going on a mission trip, or maybe help sandbagging for flooding, or go spend all day at a food shelf, or whatever that is. So, those are the things that we start with on the inside. Additionally, some of the giving back that we do on the outside is tied to things that our team members are passionate about. Okay. So one of our heads over the equipment finance side of things, Joe Costello, lost one of his best friends in college, went over to Afghanistan and died fighting for our freedom. Wow. And his mother became very involved in American Gold Star Mothers, which is an organization that helps families who've lost someone in combat, and helps veterans, right? And that was like a lifesaver for his mom. I mean, it was just community. It was with people who understood, and it was serving others who were going through what she had been through. And now every time we repossess a piece of equipment or we sell a piece of equipment, we're donating to American Gold Star Mothers. So the better Joe's department does, the more it funds a passion of his that he wants to give back to. And so again, that kind of starts on the inside, but that's led to things like high morale, industry leading retention. Our industry typically has a 50 to 100% turnover year over year. It's a very tough job, even tougher environment.
Yep.
And I think we've averaged about 22% year over year since inception of the company. That's just unheard of. So when you think, if you quantify that into the amount of money we've saved on training and HR issues and things like that, right? That are just not issues, right? There's a massive financial benefit. There's a massive morale benefit. But you gotta be willing to put that money out first and authentically, and it comes back to you in other ways. And most companies, unfortunately, are not willing to risk that, hey, if I do this, it's actually going to come back to us in these other ways. And so you see a lot of lipstick on a pig where they're telling you how great their culture is, or they're slapping some stickers on the wall saying we're all about fun and giving, these things. And it's kind of the internal joke, right, of what it actually is. And that's why our focus really starts internally, and then tying every business and everything that we do to giving back.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I think there's got to be some metrics on that. I mean, I'm sure there is. And I've read some things recently. I'll have to shoot them over to you. Some different ways, organizational strategy type things. No, it's incredible work. I see, a lot of your videos put out there, and it's all about authenticity. And I can tell that with you as the leader of your company. I can tell that's what your staff, what your employees, or everyone in your company would think. So let me ask you this. So with other business owners starting out, what advice would you have for someone that's starting out as a business owner?
I love that question. I do some mentoring on the side, and I've done some at the Union Gospel Mission, which is locally here, homeless shelter, as well as some higher level business owner mentorship. And it's just something where I always say, look, I'm just a little bit further down the road than you, right? I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not this high level guy, but I've through close to 20 years of business ownership and just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I've learned a lot. If anything, a lot of learning it the hard way. And with that, comes some pretty strong opinions on that question. But I think first and foremost, if you don't really have a clear and concise why you're going to do what you're doing, I don't care how good the product is, or the service is, or the business is, that's got to be something that's so near and dear to your heart. Because if it's just money, or if it's just things, or status, or power, or influence, that goes out the window. And I liken it to why people join the military versus what's going through their brain when they're in the middle of a firefight with their brothers and sisters in arms, right? What they started, why they went into boot camp, and what matters most when you're in a dogfight in Afghanistan are two very different things, right? And it's the same thing with business ownership, why you start. And when it gets really tough, when it's the sleepless nights, when it's really challenging, your why is going to matter most, right? And it's got to be something that's deep, not just a little extra money. Because, the joke is that only a business owner would trade working, a full 8 hours to work half days, meaning 12 hours a day or more, right?
Right.
And that's the way it is. You don't get to shut it off. It's always in the back of your mind. There's always stuff popping up. I was getting texts at 9:10 last night about a possible issue, and was very pleased that we were able to easily resolve that this morning, and that was great. But that's not always the case. Sometimes between 9:10 at night, the night before, and the next day, it got worse.
Right. Yep.
And so that why is big. I think the second thing is mentorship. You have to move your ego over to the side. There's so many people. If you don't have mentors, go get them. Financial mentors, emotional mentors, spiritual mentors. For me, I have a business coach that I've had for years. I've got a spiritual coach who's like my spiritual grandma to me, but is my rock there. I'm at a psych every week. I'm very open and talking about that. That's my head coach. He is This guy's written books. I mean, this guy knows the mind and the way it works and why it works so much better than I ever will. To have someone like that in my back corner helping me process the challenges I'm going through, helping me process how to work with people and interpret situations, priceless, right? So just those three people right there are huge, let alone when you get your ego out of the way and you realize you can learn something from anyone. And if you have that mentality that you're not above anyone or below anyone, but everybody has special gifts and talents, and you can go to others and ask for feedback and, hey, tell me what I can do better. So I think that knowing your why and having mentorship, you know, and I would say my final thing is just grit. Like, you're going to need grit. You're going to, you know, this world is lacking grit. When the going gets tough, the younger generations right now are really struggling with that. Right. And
absolutely.
You know, if you can't take the hits and fall in the dirt and scrape your knee up, if you can't take some setbacks, or if you can't take some people who, you know, I remember for the first 3 years I started Dedicated, I mean, I literally had people basically tell me to my face that what I was doing was a joke, you know, and that it obviously wasn't sincere, it wasn't real, or I was using the giving as a ploy just to be a crudball debt collector. I remember one guy going, you're a vulture, right in front of me, in front of a bunch of other people. And I'm just sitting there, at a conference.
Wow.
And I'm just going like, everything in my world of how I work with Dedicated and its team and run it is to go in the exact polar opposite of the industry. That's how we've separated ourselves. And it shows up in, you know, 250 or 60 Google reviews and a 4.9 Google rating, right? So to have someone sit there, and he was trying to just say it in jest, but it wasn't said in just a jestful way. There was, that's what he really believed, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know, do you crumble under that, or does that become motivation? And I see two distinct stereotypes of especially business owners. One is when something bad is done to them, or someone does something, you know, negative or a setback, or it gets really hard, that craters, it makes them crumble. Right. And then the other entrepreneur takes that and it's motivation. You know, you got to look at that and say, when someone tries to tell me I can't, that's exactly why I will. And I think if you have grit, you have strong mentorship, and your why is something borderline you die for, you are an unstoppable force of nature. But when your why is just some money, or, you know, a flashy car, or bigger house, or, you know, you don't really have a lot of grit, you can't really take a lot, you know, and you have no one who's, you know, one of the things that changed my life was a mentor to me at 22 said, Shawn, doesn't it make sense to go to the people who have what you want, ask them how they got it, then do what they say, and you'll have what they have, whether it's financially, material, mentally, emotionally, relationally, friendship, marriage, you name it, right?
Yep.
And I was just like, yeah, that was like, it was just one of those, you know, what do they call those kind of pivotal moments in your life where that just clicked for me. And it set me in a totally different path where I started seeking out people who had attained what I want in all facets of life, not just money.
Right.
And asking them how they did it. And what I found is that they were happy to share, because if for some reason they helped you and you succeeded because of it, that was highly fulfilling for them to feel like they got to take some ownership. And I'm like, hey, I remember when I mean, there's people that work at Dedicated that are mentors to me. Technically on the org chart, they're below me, but my whole leadership team mentors me all the time. Right? You know, I mean, one of our senior collectors was my manager when I started out in the industry 20 years ago.
Wow.
Right? He's still a mentor to me, even though he's a senior collector here and I'm the CEO and owner, right? But you know, people get their egos in a bunch and start thinking, you know, that it's about them or because of them. And I can promise you this Dedicated is not just because of me in the slightest. I have an amazing team. God has blessed this company and these people, right? Like that's the stuff where who you surround yourself with is so important. So I appreciate that question, because I think it's such an important question to someone considering starting a business. If you don't know those things, it's going to make it really tough on something that's already really tough.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think you nailed it with all of those points. I mean, those are huge. Those are great. That's really good stuff. All right. So just one last question before you go. What is your BHAG? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? If you have one that you can think of.
Oh, always love BHAGs. Learned that term probably a decade ago.
Did you?
Yeah, when I was in a ministry apprenticeship program, considering whether I went the route of a pastor or a businessman, and I figured out very quickly, serving at that level within the church, I was much more designed for business than I was for the church. But
okay.
You know, I'll tell you this. I have a really big BHAG that is a lifelong one, and that is to end starvation and easily and you know, basically eliminate people passing away from easily treatable diseases that, you know, with widely spread available medicine, right? And so that's why we've donated over 1 million meals and approaching 1.5 million meals. And you know, you're going to see coming up that Dedicated has a parent company that will be a servicing company. We're expanding our brand. I'll be launching some other things you may have mentioned, to Love, Give, Repeat, which is a media company that we launched.
Nice.
But the goal is to challenge business, and it's not a resource issue. It's an allocation of those resources issues, right? And so, you know, my hope is to inspire businesses to give back and to help allocate those resources in a way that some of these massive problems we're having in society today, where people are suffering, are all but eliminated because we can better allocate those resources, and not through it being forced, right? Not through, hey, now the government's going to take 90% of what you've earned. I don't believe in that.
Right.
But through doing the right thing. And I think business and corporate America is very much broken right now, but that doesn't mean that companies can't change that. And that's our goal. We'd like to probably be a small country, but, you know, get in a situation where, you know, if we could work with a country that needs, you know, 10 or 20 million meals a month, to be able to provide those at someday. And to be able to work and say, like, hey, we in essence help sponsor that country, and we got sustainable things in place. So sure, ultimately on the front end, there's a giving side that's heavy, but there's also sustainability elements in it too, that within a 20-year period, we are able to move out of that country and focus on the next one. So that's really like the lifelong BHAG, to provide over 1 billion meals and free over 1 million slave children, or end slavery in our time, which is crazy. Places like Haiti, that it's still legal.
It's wow.
Or like a new recent statistics being a guy from Minnesota, that Minnesota, according to the FBI, is the number 3 state for sex trafficking. Minnesota, you know what I mean? Like, that's
never
wild.
thought.
Never would have thought that, right? So, you know, that's our ultimate.
Those are incredible. That's a huge one, and that's great, really, for all of humanity. I mean, right now we're not even seeing. I think there's a delayed of what's going on from you know, the Russia-Ukraine war. There's gonna be delayed issues, I would say famine, but you know, it could be around the world. I mean, globally, there's just, you know, agriculture that's gonna be in shortages, and it's gonna have a, you know, a trickle down effect. So
what's sad is you see people use those for attention. So, right, what happened when everything kicked off with Ukraine? It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I mean? Now no one's, it's like, did we all forget about Ukraine?
It goes away.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. I saw Ken Peng the other day from LA Bay. So did we just forget about you know, Ukraine now? And that's one of the things I love about Funders Forum and the SBFA and RDFC that are supporting that conference, specifically in the fintech sector, is they let me run with raising meals for Ukraine and for Haiti. And we came together in one conference. and raised over 68,000 meals. While doing a business conference, while hearing from Mr. Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank and things like that. So we still had an amazing conference, did a lot of networking, developed a lot of business, and we did something good with that. That's the exact premise of the Dedicated. We're still a business. We still have to succeed over our competition. We can't provide a lesser product and say, well, hey, because we give, you still should do business with us. No, we still need to kick butt and take names and be the best, right? And it's the same thing with a conference with Funders Forum. It still has to be a great conference, but it can be a great conference that also gives back. And people got so excited about it. They're excited to do it again next year, to do a very similar element, saying, hey, what can we do as a conference? And that's my challenge to conferences and businesses out there, is that I challenge them to do something good, something sincere and authentic, not a just a publicity stunt, but like really look at how you can do something of big impact with your business. Then watch what it does over the next year in your business. Watch what it does to your team. Watch the way they react. Watch the way the client reacts. Watch the way the industry or your competition. I mean, we did that thing at Funders Forum. Oh, that was Manny's really idea from ARG. It wasn't even my idea. I was just happy to jump on board and say, yeah. So now all of a sudden my competition coming to me and saying, hey, let's work together to do something cool, especially in our sector. And if we can do it with the reputation that our industry has, in working with 17 different nonprofit partners and investing heavily and giving back and still succeeding, still growing by 50 to 200% year over year, any business can do that. You just have to be willing to do it on the front end and trust that if you do it authentically, it's going to come back on the back end. And things like those BHAGs have become possible.
Yeah, that was amazing when you guys did that. Truly, I was wondering how it come together and kind of being competitors and all that. It was a sight to see and a great accomplishment for sure.
It was crazy. We hit our goal in the first hour for the whole conference.
First hour. Wow.
It was like, ching, we're at it. We're like, what do we know? Like, then we had someone come up to us and give us another 12,000 in matching funds because we hit it so quick. And then that got matched and we surpassed that. Then they found out after the fact, like a week later, someone went and donated like another like 5 or 10 grand. I mean, it was just like so cool that all we were talking about was just a little bit in between speakers. That was it. Handed out a little flyer, played one little quick video, and we had that kind of impact. Well, we kind of threw that together, quite frankly, last minute. What can we do if we plan that? If we really, I mean, it's exciting. And we're seeing clients, we're seeing competition. One of my former bosses that I used to work for, she's now giving, we give 10 meals away. I think she's giving 12 now, and volunteering. I'm like, awesome. You know what I mean? I'm flattered. By all means, duplicate what we do because it means more people are doing it. And if it helps your business grow, even if for my competition, great. Like there's more than enough business out there for everyone. And we're still very successful. You know what I mean? Like Dedicated is a debt-free company. It's grown by 50 to 200% year over year. Like it's done really well. The giving hasn't hindered our growth, right? At all. In fact, I would say
help. It has to only help. Yes, I agree.
It's the main reason we have. You gotta understand our industry from 2010 to 2022 went from over 20,000 agencies. I'm sorry, over 13,000 agencies to just over 10. That's a 20% reduction. So think about in a saturated market that's been around since the dawn of time in some shape or form, we were able to come in and dominate the market, grow heavily, become an industry leader. Why? The giving and about being authentic and real and caring about how we treat people and how we give back. And that's the people that care about that, the clients that care about that, those are the ones we want to do business with. The cutthroat folks, the people that, don't treat us like a partner and don't care, those aren't the clients we want anyways. We want the clients that are aligned with us. Let the headache clients that are cutthroat, let my competition serve them.
Sure.
And so you attract the right people on your team, you attract the right customers, the level of advocacy we get in the market. I mean, the people that refer us business that are our leaders it's crazy, right? So these are advantages to doing this. It's not, there's the feel good side of it. Feels good to do business that way, but there's also the real business case for it, that it actually causes business to grow a lot faster. So it's both. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Shane, and for allowing me. This is stuff I'm just super passionate about.
Of course.
I could go for hours on this stuff. So thank you for the time.
No, I would listen and ask questions for hours too. So, it was my pleasure. I appreciate it. And, so much good stuff there. So we'll have to do it. Excuse me. We'll have to do it again sometime down the line. And, until then, enjoy your weekend, and, we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks again.
Oh, actually, you know what? Before you go, we got to make sure everyone can find you. So the website, LinkedIn, I know you're big on LinkedIn. Where should people find you?
Yeah, you go to dedicatedgbc.com. That's our website. We are really focused on LinkedIn. And so you can find me, Shawn Smith, on LinkedIn, CEO of Dedicated Financial GBC, or follow Dedicated Financial GBC. So I'd say those would be the two main areas. We do have a YouTube channel that we put out content every week. We put out a video to add value back to the industry. Whether it's interviews, we talked about having you on here soon, as well as, having guest speakers to just, kind of like when we went through the economic stuff from our perspective, we could add value back. So, anyone that happens to watch it, if we can add value to you in any way, if you ever want to reach out, or if I can help you or serve you in any way, I'm there to help, whether you're a new ISO or someone working within an organization. If I can help you in any way, my DM box is always open. Just don't try to sell me marketing leads. That's all I ask.
Right. That's great. Great way to end it.
15 of those folks every day,
Absolutely. Yeah. Automated and everything. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be so great.
Pleasures of AI.
Right.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate it again. Thanks so much. And, we'll talk soon.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you. And
all right,
thanks
Shawn.
for tuning in.